Okay. I come from a family where my mom, she's a widower. Actually, she lost her husband because her husband killed himself. He threw himself from the biggest, largest bridge that we have in Guatemala City, and he killed himself. So he left her alone with 3 children. And then am of another marriage. I came from another actually marriage. And well, actually not a marriage. She had a relationship with a guy that was married to another lady. So I was born. So my story begins since I was a little girl because we had such a very difficult life. My father was actually began drinking so much until the point that he lost his job and he fell into a terrible situation. So the story begins here when my actually father, the wife of my father's wife, when she found out that my mom was with a relationship with my dad, this lady became crazy. And she started to do so many things that she hit my mom. She even wanted to kill my mom with a knife. She hit my mom with actually a shoe, with a heel of a shoe. She sent my mom to the hospital for 3 times. And she said to her that when I was going to be born, she was going to take the snake that she had in her actually stomach, and that snake was me. So the story begins there, Stephanie. The story begins when I started to grow up because my mom got very sick and no one knew what was the situation. She became with some kind of sickness that she lost all conscience, and she was like, all of a sudden she was speaking to you, and what you could see was her crying, and she had no movement in her body. She could not move, anything like that. So I started to suffer when I was a little girl because no one believed that she was sick. She thought that she was drinking, and maybe in the middle of the street she was with me, and I was crying. No one wanted to help. So the thing became harder, and the days actually became even harder because this lady started to do some witchery against my mom and me. So every morning in front of our homes, we saw lemons, flowers, and stuff like that. So she was not only happy with the fact that she hit her, that she sent her to the hospital for 3 times, but she wanted to kill my mom and me as well. So then my mom started to do so many crazy things because she thought that she actually, was under a spell or something like that. So she even, without knowing, she almost killed me when I was about 7 years old. She did everything people told her to do. Drink this, do this, many, many things. Even one day, she took some pills that were like insecticide, and then she gave them to me. So I ended up in the hospital, almost died.
How old are you?
I was about 8 years old. So the story continues because later on, my mom started to take me to all kind of, witches and stuff like that. So I grew up perhaps 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So maybe when I was at the age of 13, the last thing that I actually suffered was that we went to actually a female witch, and what happened was that this ma'am was like, it was like a torture. He put this kind of, this special, this kind of, we have like mats that we have in Guatemala. So he put us, my mom and I, lying down. He put so many candles of different colors around us. And he started to just burn our bodies and with some scissors, he would pinch us very hard. And after that, he would bite us. And then he would pull my mom's hair and hit her on the back and did the same with me. So my mom was so confused that she used to tell me, don't cry, don't feel like this is something bad, because even harder things was, Jesus Christ suffering the cross. So at the end of all of this, in one of these sessions, the last one perhaps, I just could not stand this anymore. So what I did was I just jumped into this guy and told him, you cannot continue doing this to my mom. And I just became so strong, and I told my mom, get dressed, because we were almost naked. And my mom with a bra and only the panties, and me with panties because I was just 13. And I said to my mom, this is enough. And I told the guy, you cannot continue killing my mom and killing me. And we're not going to stand it anymore. So I just told my mom, get up from where you are, get dressed, and we're leaving. So the guy got so angry that he used to wear a mask and dance around after he would do all these kind of tortures to us. So then after that, he was so mad that day that I can remember like if it was yesterday. I'm 57 years old now, and I was 13 at this time. He went to a table, and when he got there, he said to me, he cursed on me that I was going to be followed by the devil all my life. Yeah. So then I did not believe him. I said to him, you can go to hell, and I don't care about you. I took my mom out of that place, and that was the end of it. My mom continued to be sick. When I was 24, no one just knew what was happening to her. They sent her many times to the psychiatrist. She ended up in a psychiatrist hospital, and then she was like, they even did this kind of, they call it electroshock, and that's kind of thing that they can erase their memory. And because they were saying that she was crazy, that she was insane, and we lived terrible things. We saw her in terrible conditions. When she was sent back to our home, she did not know who we were and who she was, and it took like 2 or 3 years for her to recover her memory. Anyway, when I was 24, just the doctor found that what she had was epilepsy, and we knew what was happening at that point. So anyway, I grew up like feeling that witches do not exist, and I rejected to believe, and I said, I don't believe in this, and they cannot hurt me, they cannot do anything to me because they do not exist. And that's the way I protected myself. So then what happened is that I just had another actually experiences as well, because my oldest brother, at the beginning, he did not believe in God because of so many things we went through. And he was like the figure of my dad, because my dad did not live with me due to the fact that he was a drunk. And anyway, I believed everything, every word he said. It was the right word for me. So he said God does not exist. So I believed that for so many years of my life. So when I was maybe 8 or something like that, he changed his mind, and he went to believe in this yoga thing, and he started to believe in reincarnation and all that. So I started to live other experiences, and I even experienced one life that I always remember that I had. I don't know how, if I invented it, I just don't know how it got to my mind, but I just could recall the events that had happened to me during this time, who I was, what my name was, who my brothers were, and all that. So I continued living like this until my oldest brother, when he was like, I don't know, maybe 24, 25, I can't remember, and I was in my maybe teenager, as a teenager, he started to tell me that what he did was wrong, and there is only one truth, and that was God. So at this point, I didn't know what to believe, because I was so confused that I said to him, why don't you just leave me alone? because I don't know what to believe. So this is the way I just continue living. And but there was something always in my heart, and I was told God, I want to know who you are. If you do exist, show me who you are. And I continued living like that. I was 20, 28, 29, 30 something. I got married. And one day when I was about maybe 40, I was in this house already, 42 or something. I was sleeping in the room where you're going to sleep tonight. And it was maybe 3 in the morning when I felt like someone was hitting me with an axe so hard in my heart that I just jumped out of my bed, ran to the window, and my husband was like, what is happening? So since that night, I felt like I was dying. I could not breathe. I was like, I'm gonna die because the air does not come to my lungs. And just God knows the life that I just lived for a month. And then I did not tell anyone that was the way I was feeling, what is happening to me. I was working as a teacher at that time, so I went to my school and I told one of my co-workers there who was a Christian, and I said, this is happening to me. She prayed for me, but this continued and continued and continued. And I was just dying. I felt I'm going to kill myself. I just cannot do it any longer. I cannot take this any longer. So then during this month, I just went to different people, Christian people, and I asked them to pray for me. They did. Some brothers came to my home, and they wanted to. Actually, they kind of came to do exorcism or something like this to me, but nothing happened. So I continue like this, but maybe a week before the month, I just took the phone and I called my oldest brother, and I said to him, this is the day. This is the day that if you don't come over right now, you're going to find me dead. You're going to find me on the floor lying dead. And he was so worried that he lives very close by. He came with his family, his wife and children, who they are Christian. And they started to pray for me. And this is the day I just fell on the floor and I just felt the presence of God. And then this is the day when I knew who God was. This is the day when I really found the truth about God. And I said to him, I promise you that my life is going to be all yours. And since that day, the attacks continued and continued, but I became stronger and stronger and stronger. And this happened, and I know it did because about a year before that, I met a friend who was from the States as well. And she was coming over to pray for me, to study the Bible on Tuesdays. And I accepted because I felt like, what do I have to lose? And she speaks English, it's going to be fine. And I was taking it as a fun time. And 1 year passed, and then I was like, but 1 week before this happened to me, I said to her one day, you know what? This is the day I'm going to be honest to you. I'm trying, but I don't feel anything. And I don't know if what you're telling me is true or no. So, you know what? What I'm going to do today is I'm going to promise you I'm going to start believing. What you're saying is going to be okay. I'm going to believe it. And that was a week before I felt this hitting in my heart, like the axe that I'm telling you about, like someone was hitting me with an axe. And this happened to me a week right after this time. And I don't know if this is related or not, but this is what happened. And what I'm saying is, ever since I came to my husband and I told him, he did not know what was happening at this point, and he has always supported me, and he well, was so thankful that I finally came to the Lord, and this is when we started to begin a life in Christ. It's been hard, very, very hard for my family, and I have suffered so many things. At this point, we had some money to live, and we were doing okay. After that, we became very poor, but we started to know that this was the will of the Lord. So what I'm saying is, it is hard until today. It is hard, and this is why I love Jesus, and I know that God is real. If it hadn't been for Him, perhaps I would not be speaking to you right now. So what I'm saying is, you have to experience something like this. And people would say, oh, you're crazy. You can be sent to a psychologist or sent to a cuckoo home, or I don't know where. But I know I wasn't crazy. This was real. This was happening to me. And when I think about it, I just cannot stop crying. Because living the hell that I lived for a month, I do not wish anyone would actually suffer this. And I just don't know if this happened because of this curse this guy did on me, which I always try to reject and say, you do not exist, you cannot affect me. But I started then to realize that this world really exists. So this is something that I will always share to people, and this is the reason why this home is now the house of the Lord. And we always want to serve the Lord, but there is always that is stopping us all the time, whether money, food, I don't know what, the way we live, I don't know what. And I decided to open a small place to teach English, and that was a way to get to my children, to tell them God exists, and try to preach to them. Edwin was helping me, he was helping me. But last year I decided to stop, and now I'm working for a call center, which I think I'm going to stop doing this year as well. And I want to go back to my teaching, and I want to go back to praying. We want to do, to preaching and doing so many other things for people, but it's been hard, and we don't know how to do it, and we're trapped in a circle and going around and around, and it's difficult. And this is what I wanted to share with you. And thank you for listening.
Amazing journey.
Thank you for listening.
I'm glad we got that.
You can ask his name. His name is Sendil, and being followers of the Hindu actually beliefs, they left everything behind. Sendil came here to Guatemala, and when he was living here, maybe on his third, fourth day living here, somehow he became very, very ill. And they had a lot of money because they are the owners of some actually company that sells generic medicine. So they took him to all hospitals that you can name, best doctors that you can name, and the guy was dying. So at this time, he already knew we were Christians, and the owner of this place told us that they were going to send Sendil back to India. But he said to us, before we take him to India, could you pray for him? So we as family, we did pray for him, and the Lord did a miracle in his life. And he did not have to go back to India. He stayed here for about 8 years of his life. And he learned who God is. Now, if you speak to him, he will tell you what God did in his life. And now he says the only Savior is God. And he left everything back. And he prays to this day that God is actually works miracles, and he did it in his life. And he grew in a very different, actually, religion, way of living, and it was very hard for him to accept and to actually see. But as I'm saying, God has to deal with you, has to show you, to teach you who he is. And now we have two Indian friends that can tell you from their mouths, lively, that they know God. And they came to Guatemala to do this. Now, one of them is living in El Salvador, and another one is in Venezuela. But they left the country with God in their hearts.
Wow, amazing.
This is what God does.
Amen.
It is true.
Wow.